Noble, can you do a video about all the known Titan facilities on Azeroth? What is their purpose? Did they fail their purpose? How do we influence them? Hello everyone! The Titans and the Keepers, they left quite a mark on the world of Azeroth, with many of their facilities influencing day-to-day life to this very day, while others, they've played their parts. When the Titans dealt with the old gods in the Black Empire, they ripped out the old god Y'Shaarj, which left behind a massive wound on the planet. Their Keepers worked on patching the wound, containing his life energies, which we now know as the Well of Eternity. Little pieces of Y'Shaarj, they fell back onto the planet, to which his heart was found by Keeper, who figured that placing it within a container and guarding it, that would be the best course of action, since studying it could help them figure out the nature of the old gods and the other creatures of the void. Ra told some of his Mogu followers to watch over the vault, while in time the Titans, they would be slain by Sargeras. Their spirits will return to Azeroth and enter the Keepers, but unlike the other Keepers, Ra would actually figure out what was going on. He figured out that his beloved creators were dead, so he extracted the lingering power of Aman'Fu from himself, and he carefully stored it within a mountain vault near the Veil of Eternal Blossoms. He himself retreated into the catacombs beneath the land to meditate on what he had learned. Over time, a Mogu by the name of Lei Shen, he would confront Ra-Den, not only to steal his powers, but also that of Aman'Fu. He would become known as the Thunder King, and he would repurpose the Mokoshan vaults into a facility where they could create an endless army. He also turned the Thundering Mountain into the Throne of Thunder, where Keeper Ra was held as a prisoner.
For millennia I have waited in darkness, in silence, pierced only by the shrieks of the tormented.
The Veil of Eternal Blossoms, as well as Sholazar Basin and Un'Goro Crater, they were quite special places, as these locations, they saw the energies from the Well of Eternity, the energies from the Titan Spirit of Azeroth come together. This gave the locations the perfect conditions to develop new flora and fauna, something that Keeper Freya made good use of. They created tiny facilities, like the Shaper's Terrace, to oversee the lands, and this allowed them to experiment with their creations. Say that they wanted to know what would happen if one of their creations is exposed to a sulphurous hot spring. They could wait around for millennia, sit back, observe, and wait for the creature to accidentally stumble in. Or, in places like Un'Goro, they could place the creature in the water themselves and see what would happen. Garrosh used the waters of the Veil to empower the heart of Y'Shaarj. The Avatar of Freya has us go through Waygates and pick up defenses to fight back the Scourge at Sholazar Basin, while the Shaper's Terrace that was originally cloaked from mortal eyes, a cloak that vanished with the Cataclysm. Another area that was shrouded with magic, that was Uldum, which houses the Forge of Origination, created by Arcadis and Mimron. The Forge of Origination, together with the Forge of Wills, they were placed in the southern and northern parts of the world to help Azeroth's spirit grow. It would infuse it with cosmic energies, shape the world soul's early perception, control the rhythm of the deep earth, and fortify the slumbering titan. Besides helping the soul grow, the forges also had a second purpose. In the case of the Forge of Origination, that came with a reset button for the world. If the world would fall to corruption once more, this machine could be used to unleash incredible energies, powerful enough to eradicate all life on the planet and have it start all over again. This is the device that drew the attention of Lei Shen the Thunder King, who wanted to claim it, but the Tol'vir guarding the place, they were not having it. They modified the weapon and unleashed the unmaking powers of the Forge upon Lei Shen and his forces, which in turn wiped them all out, and Uldum, which was once a lush jungle, a paradise as they described it, that had now turned into the desert as we know it today. The surviving Tol'vir within Uldum, they worked to ensure that no one would ever again try to claim such power. They shrouded the few mountain passes that led into the region with magic. In doing so, the Tol'vir effectively sealed Uldum off from the eyes of mortals, an illusion that worked until the Cataclysm. That moment revealed the land for all to see once again, and the Black Dragon Deathwing, he was the one who set his eyes on succeeding where Lei Shen had failed. We prevented him from getting his hands on the Forge and wipe out all life, and we even joined Bran Bronzebeard into the halls of Origination itself to defuse the threats and save the world once again.
Wahoo! Azeroth lives to see another day!
The dwarf, the myth, the legend. He's very keen on discovering the history of the world, the Titans and his own race, a quest that eventually took him to Ulduar in Northrend. This is the northern area of the world, the location that houses the Forge of Wills, which was used to create a whole new generation of the Titan Forged, like the Anubisaf, the Tol'vir and the Mogu. Because he was so awesome in the war against the Black Empire, Keeper Odin was assigned by the Pantheon to be the Prime Designate. The duty of watching over the Forge and also the old god Y'Shaarj's prison, that would fall onto him. So he and the other Keepers, they worked on building a massive fortress to serve as the main bastion of the Titan Forged on Azeroth. This is of course Ulduar, but Odin and the Keepers, they would have a bit of a falling out when Keeper Tyr came up with the idea to empower proto-dragons and turn them into the aspects that help with safeguarding the world from threats. Odin didn't believe that they should place Azeroth's fate on the shoulders of such primitive life forms, and considering that their parents made him the prime designate, he should have the final say. The other Keepers, they went ahead with their plans anyways. They empowered the aspects and altered hundreds of proto-dragon eggs. Their task was to help protect the world. Each flight would serve a different dragon aspect, but all of them would be bound by their duty. To strengthen this bond, the Keeper forged a grand tower called Wyrmrest Temple. It would serve as the heart of Dragon's culture, a sanctuary where they could gather and discuss their activities. But above all, Wyrmrest would stand as a symbol of their unity. Now Odin, he could not exactly appreciate all of this. Together with the aid of Helya, he took one of Ulduar's wings, they lifted up into the sky, and from the halls of valor, he would make his own army with Valajar and no stupid dragons. Down below, Yogg-Saron did his best to break out of his prison, gain control of the Keepers and the facility. Keeper Loken fell under his sway. He worked against the other Keepers, and he spread the curse of flesh. Keeper Tyr and Arcadus, they eluded Yogg's and Loken's grasp, and knew that if there was any hope of undoing the damage caused by his schemes, that they would need to carefully study his actions. The discs of Norgannon were perfect for this job, as they were created to transcribe history as it unfolded on the planet. In case the Pantheon ever returned, they would possess a record of what had come to pass in their absence. Of course, Loken didn't want them to figure out what he had done, so he panicked a little bit, and he sent out the Kafraxi, ancient beings of the Black Empire, to track down Tyr and his crew. In the land we know as Tyr's today, Tyr actually fell. He gave his life to protect his friends and defeat the Kafraxi. Arcadus and Ironaya, they decided to bury him there, and they renamed the area in his honor. They then traveled to Uldaman, a facility originally designed to house the Trogs, one of the early Titan Force that they created, and they didn't exactly turn out the way that they wanted to. Not having the heart to put them down, they placed them in stasis within Uldaman, and now, to house the Disc of Norgannon, they decided to expand the facility, vowing to protect the history of Azeroth with their lives if need be. The Curse of Flesh, designed to make the Titan Force weaker and more vulnerable to the corruption of the old gods, not to mention literally give them flesh, that was spreading amongst the Titan Force in Uldaman, and as more and more fell to its effects, they requested to be placed in stasis to hold off the corruption. Many years later, the Dwarves of Ironforge decided to delve into Uldaman to gather artifacts and knowledge, and they inadvertently woke the monsters that slept within its belly. The Trogs brutally slaughtered the explorers with glee. The survivors scrambled out of Uldaman in terror, and they fled back to Ironforge. The dwarves were relieved to find that the Trogs didn't follow them, but that was actually a miscalculation. The Trogs were indeed following them, they only did so underground. This is where they heard the great factories in the heart of Nomenagon, the reason why they started their invasion of the city, and this would lead to the gnomes nearly being wiped out, and of course losing their home. Now tales of fabled treasure and great knowledge that would entice would-be treasure hunters to dig deeper into the secrets of Uldaman. Stone defenders, savage Trogs, dark iron invaders, and all kinds of dangers lurked within the lost city, but this did not hold us back. We still barged into the facility, and of course the defenses, they saw us as enemies. Ironaya and Arcadus, we all struck them down, and we claimed the Disc of Norgannon, all in the name of knowledge.
Who dares awaken Arcadus? Who dares the wrath of the Makers?
During the Cataclysm, we discovered that more digging has been done within the Badlands, and more Titan ruins are being uncovered. One of them, the Tomb of the Watchers, it played a pivotal role in the creation and cleansing of the Black Dragon Raphion. As we went in, we dealt with the Guardians, we solved their puzzles, and we returned with the Eye of the Watchers. This Titan artifact was just the key to creating a purified Black Dragon egg, and this then kicked off the adventures of Raphion. Meanwhile, back in the past, back at Ulduar, we have Loken that was not having a grand old good time. He was very worried about his transgressions being revealed, so he worked very hard on replacing the information from the discs with an archive of his own called the Tribunal of Ages. He also altered the Titan communication devices within Ulduar. This assured that no living creature would be able to contact Elgolan the Observer, he who was charged by the Titans to keep an eye on the planet. Only Loken's death would cause the Castellar to come down to Azeroth. In Loken's mind, he would be perfect for the job of taking revenge if he would ever fall. Now of course, Loken would be taken care of, but not by Arcadus or Ironaya as he had expected. During Wrath the Lich King, Bran Bronzebeard discovered Yogg-Saron's presence, whose enchanted prison bonds had been weakened by Cho'Gall. This allowed the Old God to take complete control of the facility, and the Old God threats had to be taken care of. The Alliance and the Horde, Garrus and Varian, they were not really fond of each other at the time, so members of the Alliance, they offered to escort Bren into Ulduar to uncover more of its mysteries. They infiltrated a wing of the fortress known as the Halls of Stone, home to the Forge of Wheels. There, Shonir the Iron Shaper, one of Keeper Loken's most trusted servants, was waiting for them. He served as the master of the Forge of Wheels and the architect of Yogg-Saron's Iron Army. The Alliance heroes, they braved countless dangers and destroyed Shonir, denying the old god any further reinforcements. Meanwhile, the Horde did not exactly remain idle. A handful of the greatest heroes, they traveled to another one of Ulduar's wings. They traveled into the Halls of Lightning. Loken called this corner of the fortress home, and he surrounded himself with the most ardent followers. The Horde's champions were nearly struck down when they came face to face with the fallen keeper, but their persistence paid off and they were able to slay him. In his final moments, Loken gave his enemies a cryptic message.
My death heralds the end of this world.
A signal was sent out. Elgalon came down and he observed the planet. His conclusion was that the old god's corruption had spread across the world and had even taken roots in strongholds like Ulduar. Elgalon believed that purification was the only course of action. He was ready to unleash the Forge of Origination power on Azeroth, but thankfully, the heroes of Azeroth, they were able to smack some sense into him. He was moved by our resolve and decided that we had earned the right to fight against Azeroth's corruption ourselves, giving us the key to reverse the failsafe protocol. Not only that, we were also able to liberate the keepers of Yogg-Saron's control and even defeat the old god himself.
Your fate is sealed. The end of days is finally upon you, and all who inhabit this miserable little seedling.
Another old god that wanted to break out of his prison, that was Kafun, housed within Ankh-Kiraj. In ages past, Kipara and his allies, they worked on expanding this prison, building another mighty fortress with tidal forts left behind to guard the strongholds. In time, the facility would be taken over by the Akir. They then slaved the Anubis giants, which proved to be a mighty fighting force in the war against the trolls. And while the trolls were unsuccessful in completely wiping out the insectoid threats, they were able to claim enough dominance to pronounce themselves victorious. The Akir submitted, and under the influence of Kafun, they evolved into the Karaji. Many years later, with the Night Elves setting foot into Ankh-Kiraj, they accidentally awakened the dormant insectoids and they kicked off the War of the Shifting Sands. This resulted in the creation of the Scarab Wall to contain that dark threat inside, but many years later, the wall would prove not to be strong enough to stop Cho'Gall. He and his cultists performed a great ritual outside of the wall. Their magic extended beyond the barrier, piercing into the prison chamber where Kafun was chained. The influx of power, it shattered the old god's bonds, but it came at a price for Cho'Gall's followers. As the energies unleashed, it destroyed most of the cultists who had taken part. The few who survived, they were left catatonic, unable to speak or even move, but Cho'Gall had no more use for them as he left them behind in the desert, and then set out to liberate Yogg-Saron. The world in turn rose up, Alliance and Horde worked together, and while the Horde occupied the Karaji army up above, AQ-20, the Alliance, they took on Kafun and defeated him.
You are already dead.
Those are the major Titan facilities that we can find in the world, but there are also a couple of smaller ones. For example, there's the Vault of Arcavum, located in Wintergrasp. Wintergrasp itself, it doesn't really have much of a story, besides it being a staging ground for the Horde and Alliance to fight over. The reason for that is mainly the resources that they could find, and of course both sides are very eager to seize the artifacts and the relics held within the vault for their battle against the Lich King. There's also a log you can find inside. This is created by Arcavum, the Stone Watcher, which talks about the events that happened while he was in charge of guarding the place. Day 10. The Makers are gone. I've been left to watch. Day 10,500. The halls are quiet. Empty. I thought the Makers want me to watch the hall, but they never specifically said, Arcavum, watch the hall. Maybe it's okay if I watch outside too. It will probably be less boring outside. It's decided. I am now responsible for watching the hall and the outside. I shall take on my new responsibility next month. Day 900,500. Been very boring outside. Arcavum go to sleep. Some noise outside. It get cold. It's possible that the noise Arcavum heard was the Sundering, which of course split the land of Kalimdor apart, and this in turn sent Northrends up north, which made it a lot colder. Day a lot. Arcavum wake up. Notice face feels soft. Not important. Go back to sleep. Arcavum was probably hit by the curse of flesh that I talked about earlier, causing his face to now feel soft. The rest of the entries, they talk about small green people showing up, us fighting each other, his brothers waking up again, and us finding them as well. It being a battleground, that usually means that the story behind it isn't really massive, but it's still interesting to see a little Titan facility with guardians just waiting inside. Another battleground for Wrath the Lich King, that is the Strand of the Ancients, a facility that houses a mysterious Titan relic. Disembark on the Strand with your war machines and fellow soldiers, smash the walls of yesteryear and claim a prize of eons past. Or seize the Titan's once magnificent bulwark, man their guns and blast your enemies back into the sea. I don't believe that they've ever done anything with the relic, but what is kinda cool is that we can see a road connecting these Titan facilities within Northrend. Named the Path of the Titans, it runs from Ulduar over the Terrace of the Makers through Dragonblight, all the way to Wyrmrest Temple. Then it goes on into the Frozen Sea, while parts of it can be found on the western side of the Strand of the Ancients, seemingly going even further. Let's not forget that the land split apart after the War of the Ancients, so it's very possible that these facilities, once upon a time, maybe even more of them, were actually connected to each other. In Legion, we have priests follow the guidance of Magni Bronzebeard the Speaker, who's heard a calling of sorts coming from the deep core of Azeroth. That voice is telling him that there's a lost Titan vault out there, somewhere near the Maelstrom.
Whoa, that's a large door. Gotta be a lever around here somewhere, though. There's always a lever. Rivola, Rook, Maez, Amir.
Well, I suppose you don't need to be looking for levers and switches no more, Bran.
Bit of a shame, that.
Within the Primordial Observatory, we're informed by the Custodian that this place houses Seekers, feral creatures infused with the light by the Shapers. The finest specimens were selected from herds and trained to serve the Watchers, speeding them to sites of corruption in accordance with containment protocols. Once upon a time, there were herds of them. Now only 3 remain, and after holding our ground against the facility's defenses, we figured out why the voices told Magni to come here.
The Custodian be powering down. Might be this chamber expended all its energy. No one's left to look after these poor creatures.
You're wrong about that, lass. 'Tis why Azeroth called me. Called us here. She knew it wouldn't be long before the Void o'ertook this chamber. She knew who would protect these creatures and use them in service of the light. 'Tis you, High Priest.
And that is how priests obtained their class mount, but Azeroth itself, it wasn't really doing great. The old god's corruption, it was disturbing her dreams. Once more, Magni guided us, this time to the Maker's Overlook in Sholazar Basin, which has a teleportation path to the Hall of Communion. These halls were built to watch over the soul of the world, with its own titanic defenses in place. The disturbing echoes, her nightmares manifested. They're causing quite a bit of trouble here, but we're able to put down the amalgamon of torment and contain the nightmares. The Maiden of Vitality lets us know that the threat is neutralized, and will quickly get to work on repairing the defenses. Their subject Azeroth, that which they watch over, it has a bit of an abnormal heartbeat, but other than that, her vitals are within acceptable parameters. This is where they keep a close eye on that spirit within the world, the whole reason why the Titans brought order to the planet, and created all their facilities to begin with. With time, I'm positive that more of them will be revealed, but for now, I hope I was able to explain a little bit more about the Titan facilities, and of course their purpose. Thanks so much for your comments. It was a lot of fun to research the history behind all of this, and it actually inspired me to make this video, so I really hope you enjoyed. Right then, as always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe and ring that bell if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And until next time, guys. See ya!